Welcome! This is the Banshee Phantom. Woo! 100 mils. 100 mils of travel there. You can see the capabilities of this bike is outstanding. Well, it's not really 100 mils, it's 105. But guys and girls, this bike is really a trail bike at heart. This is a 29er. It's only 100 mils of rear travel, but this bike feels so burly, and it does feel like it has way more than 100 mils of travel. This bike feels really good cornering. It's got a nice short wheelbase and very short stays, and it handles corners really well and just keeps it nice, tight and tidy going into those corners. One thing I do feel is climbing on this bike, because of the weight of this bike, to save a bit of energy and to make this bike more efficient on the climbs, locking out the back really makes a difference. And it will just help this bike to climb better and help you when the going gets tougher on these climbs, that is. When you hit the descent, open that shock up and just shred, because this bike is a total shredder, man, for sure. So let's get to the suspension on this bike. This KS linkage system isn't the best at small bump compliance. You do feel the small bumps quite a bit, but the medium blows, it soaks up really well. It just, in the beginning of the stroke, it is very supportive not to blow through all the travel, and just you feel the small bumps quite a bit. It's a medium suspension kind of linkage rate that this thing's got, so I'm liking it. I don't like it blasting through the travel. It also helps with wallowing, so you don't feel wallow as much with this linkage system as you would with something like a 4-bar suspension. But on the other hand, it isn't as plush. Let me tell you, I am loving that bike. But now, Ice Cream, it's time. I'm gonna get undressed now, and I'm gonna join the boys in the river. Woo! Man, when I ride this bike, I feel so safe on it. I feel stability. I feel like it's a chunky, beefy bike on those descents, and it just feels really good, man. It totally does. That's why I wiped the other day. I was riding this bike and I just felt so good going down there. I felt almost unstoppable. Wow! And this bike just gave me that feeling of invincibility. Man, it really is such a nice burly feeling bike. Woo! Yeah! So one thing is for sure, if you're going to be buying this bike, you're going to need a very wide spread of gears at the back. So I would suggest either a 42 at the back, or even if you can go 46.
E13.
E13, boo. Hey?
940.
Drop that like it's hot. Woo! Yeah! Pin it, bros! Pin it! Woo! Oh yeah! Woo! Like I said earlier, this bike definitely doesn't feel like it's got 100 mils of rear travel. It's really responsive on the descents, and it just slays, man. It really does. You don't feel any bottoming out or harshness when it, if it is bottoming out, I can't feel it. Its progression rate is good. It's nice and firm at the rear. It's a really good feeling suspension platform at the back, and it is pretty responsive. The grip is there. It's a good, capable bike for sure. Woo, Oaks, that was sicker. Sizing wise on this frame, I'm feeling right at home on this medium size. This is running a very short stem. I think this is about a 40, and nice super wide bars, and I'm feeling right at home on this medium. Doesn't feel too cramped, feels good. Here we have the Banshee Phantom. As you can see, it's actually a really kiff design, man. I'm loving it. I'm loving the old school retro build on this bike. Here we got like a steampunkish rear triangle design. Man, this bike just is a looker, man. This color scheme, check it out. Blue on yellow, this thing really pops, it stands out. And as you can see, unfortunately there's no space for a bottle cage anywhere here. It doesn't even have the bottle cage bolts. You're not going to be able to ride with the bottle cage. These are the dropouts. These are replaceable, and you can buy new dropouts for this bike, which can change geometry and stuff. Rockshox Monarch RT3 at the back. This bike has got an XT Crank. It's running the Praxis cassette at the back. That's 11 to 40. That's a 30 blade in front to help with the climbing. I am digging it. Lank. Tight cornering on this bike is actually pretty good. It's a shortish bike, shortish 29er, and it handles the corners really well, pushes into it. It's really easy. You don't have to muscle it, and in the rough, this thing feels burly. It feels stable, and it's a mean machine. Woo. Limitations on this bike. I'm not going to hit that. That will be tough, but that will be tough for any bike, and I'm just going to walk it. You ain't biking if you ain't hiking. Climbing is where this bike really loses a bit of attraction for me, but I rate it. I rate the climbing capabilities on this bike around about 5.5 out of 10. But if you got the right drivetrain, like a wide gear ratio and a wide range, man, I think that this bike would climb a lot better. As a trail bike, I reckon this is a really good option if you want one. The only limitations that this bike is going to have is the skill level of the rider. It is a really capable and fun trail bike, and for a 100mm travel bike, this bike is really sick, man. Beginners and advanced level riders will have so much fun with this bike. The downside on this bike is unfortunately the climbing. It is a bit of a pig, but a lighter build and more gear range will sort that out pretty easily. It's got nice and short chain stays, so the cornering is really nice, and it just digs in, dives in. You don't have to muscle it. It's very nimble. Cornering wise, I give this bike a good 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 or even an 8 out of 10 for fun, because it is loads of fun riding this bike, especially when you know that it is only 100 mils of travel. I didn't feel unsafe in any areas on this bike, and the stability was there. Stability wise, this bike comes in about 7 out of 10. But man, I love this bike, and I would definitely buy it if I was on a tighter budget and you can't afford a good carbon trail bike. This bike is a fantastic option, and you are no doubt going to be having so much fun with this bike. So thanks for joining me. Keep the rubber side down. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.